Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. The topic of today's discussion is the interaction between law and space. The space has always been a mystery for lawyers. But if we go back into the history, or not so back into the history, just a couple of 100 years ago, we have been looking at a very extensive interaction between the legal scientists and applied scientists, especially the scientists who are working on the space. For example, Galileo from Italy. There is a clash between the Galileo and the church. The church is saying that Earth is the center of everything, but the Galileo now, by using his applied science techniques, is able to claim that no, the sun is the center and Earth and other planets are revolving around it. Hence a clash between the religious scholars and the applied scientists emerge. And we all know that the church was the one who was making laws at that time. So conflict between the legal scientists and the applied scientists emerged. There are other numerous examples. For example, whenever a new innovation technology comes, our lawyers take a defensive position. Our lawyers at the first stance say that, oh, technology is disrupting, technology is destroying, technology is something which will cause hurdle in our other smooth running of legal processes, and we always oppose new innovation technologies. But there have been very less incidents when the lawyers have actually accepted that technology was beneficial and the oppose or the opposition by their side was not necessary at that time. And one of the greatest examples is the space and the law, the innovations which have happened with regard to the space. Today the lawyers are willing to accept that these are something which are beneficial for the mankind. They are very much essential for our legal system, our philosophical progression, and overall for the humanity. Here is a general overview of space law treaties. You can see that space law has gradually developed during the last century, and right in the beginning of the Cold War, we know that the Cold War between the Russia and USSR at then and USA. So what happened? That USA and USSR, they are actually struggling or fighting to take lead when it comes to the space. They are trying to dominate. The Yuri Gagarin went to the space. Now the American has to spend someone into the space. So the Americans sent at a later stages a rocket on the moon, and then he claimed that they have dominated the moon. They are the first one who are on the moon. And these sort of incidents when both countries are giving dodge to each other shows us that how serious this was at that time. So that was the time, the period of Cold War, when the space law developed. The first treaty which was signed, it was in 1976, which is called as Outer Space Treaty. The Outer Space Treaty decided that who owns the space. And this treaty mentions different principles, and these principles actually guide to the individual states that what they can do with regard to space or what they cannot do. And then we have a rescue agreement. It's mean that the so many astronauts were going into the space. The country felt a threat that if something went wrong to our astronauts, who will rescue them? So they made a kind of corporation agreement which shows that rescue of the astronaut is the duty of everyone who first interact with them, no matter it is a Russian scientist or American scientist. And then there is an important document which is called as Liability Convention. When there were experiments in the space, people were polluting the space. And this is called as space junk. If you will go on Google and you will type space junk, you will find that the space junk is increasing. Junk, we know that what is junk. Junk means the unnecessary things or waste or garbage in general. So space junk around our earth is increasing. We are actually dumping space with junk, and many countries are literally gathering all the garbage from their countries and dumping them into the space. Okay, so the pollution of the space is increasing. And this convention was signed in 1972, when the countries agreed that they will not destroy the space, they will not make the space dirty. Yes. So, and then there is registration convention, which required countries to register whatever object they launch into the space. Means the other countries or the world as a whole should be aware of the anything what you launch into the space. And then there is a moon agreement, because many countries were actually claiming that moon belongs to them, especially when Americans went to the moon and they put their American flag there. Many Americans, not formally but informally, claimed that now the moon belongs to them, because they were the first one to occupy the moon. So then it was decided that who should claim the ownership of the celestial bodies or the outer space bodies, and actually no one can claim it. Yes. If we talk about the classic debates related to the space, the most classic debate is the property rights on any planet. Today, if you go on internet, you can find many people, they are buying, they are actually selling territories on moon and Mars. So you can pay them a small amount of money, and they will give you property right, or even they can post you a physical certificate which will mention your name and the land on the moon or Mars, and now you are the owner of this place. Yes. So the classic debate was that who is the owner of the land which is on the outer space planets. And today we can see that many countries are actually claiming certain portions of moon and Mars, that they belong to them. And many companies, private companies or private initiatives, you can simply go and Google them. You can find that people are actually buying and selling land on moon and Mars. Yes. And then there is another interesting question related to the minerals. We know that so many things were falling from the sky. Asteroids were falling, and people were gathering them, and people were then buying and selling them. And ultimately it became a legal question, because some of the asteroids were very big and they were required for scientific experiment. And many asteroids actually, they were embedded with expensive metals, for example gold and so on. So there was a need to make a law related to the asteroids. Who is saying? Any question? Is there any question? Mute it. Okay. Yes. So the question is that who owns the right to the things which fall from the sky? For example, asteroid, if it fall from the sky, who owns this? And similarly, there are missions which are launched by the individual countries who are doing the mining on some of the planets or celestial bodies, extraterrestrial bodies, who have the right to do the mining there. This is a legal question, because the space is filled, or these planets are filled with very expensive metals, and to whom these belong to. This is a question which is now being discussed as well. Yes. Yes. So similarly, the space have been used for military purposes. Numerous missions have been launched. Numerous satellites are in the outer space just for the sole purpose of doing spying, espionage. just for the sole purpose of spying. And initially it was used during the Iran-Iraq war. The leading countries used these satellites to do the spying. And now the space is dominated by majority of these satellites are for the military uses. Yes. And if we talk about the weapons, there are numerous weapons, and from all dimensions you can use these weapons. For example, you can launch a missile from Earth to space. You can fire a missile from space to space, and you can even fire a missile from space to Earth. Yes. And there are shields as well. Shields, this is called as shield, but basically this is a weapon system. When a missile is fired on you, your shield can destroy this missile. This is called as space shield, or you have heard about the Israel's, their shield is considered as very sophisticated, because they receive so many threats from both sides, from Palestinian side and from the Lebanese side. So their this missile detection system and to destroying the missile system is the most sophisticated system. And this call for a fourth treaty, that what about the weaponization of the space? Yes, space is being weaponized. So with the advancement of technology, do we need new laws related to the weaponization of space? I personally think that yes, we do need more laws related to the weaponization of space, so that less and less threats should be falling from the sky. Yes, this is an example I gave you in I think second class as well. It is about the high-speed internet, or 5G. This is a cross-border military threat, a sort of. For example, when you buy 5G technology from another country, this 5G technology is delivered by these spacecrafts, you can say. So these spacecrafts, they are delivering this 5G technology, but no one knows that they are in your outer space just for the 5G technology, or maybe they are spying, or maybe they are collecting data or something. Yes. So when you are using these sort of satellites which have dual purpose, you need very strong legislations. Yes, you need laws to regulate these sort of interaction with the technology, because people who are importing these sort of technologies, they don't know about the uses of these technologies, and these technologies can be used for negative purposes. Yes, when we talk about commercialization of space, all of these people who are the richest people on the planet, the Zuckerbergs, the Elon Musk, yes, our Microsoft guy, all of these people, they are investing a huge amount of money into the space programs. They are businessmen. Why they are investing money into these sort of businesses? Because they know that there is money in the space. So that's why they are investing a huge amount of money into the space. All of these companies, they have projects related to space. They are businessmen. They are investing billions of dollars into the space, which shows that space is a serious thing, and the money is in the space. So what are the contemporary debates among the legal scientists related to the space? The first debate is related to sustainable development of space activities, the space environmental protection. I gave you the example of space junk. What does it mean by space junk? Space junk means we are dumping the space, and the space is there, getting polluted by these garbage which countries are throwing outside of their countries and dumping into the space. There is a need to make laws related to the sustainability of the space, that countries should be obliged not to dump any garbage, not to do unnecessary experiments in the space, and protect the space from pollution. The second debate, contemporary debate, is related to innovation management and right abuses. I gave you some examples that who owns the space and who owns the minerals coming from the space. For this purpose, there is a need to make more and more laws for the management of the innovations which is happening, first of all, in the space technology. And secondly, when it comes to the property rights, the minerals or the other products coming from the space, or or the instruments which are already in space or being used by the space facilities, property rights related to them. Then a very new phenomena, emerging phenomena is space tourism. The use of space for commercial projects and space traffic management. Many people are willing to go to the space just for touristic purposes. People are going into the space. People want to go into the space. They have money to afford a space travel, yes, and they are willing to pay the amount of money which is demanded by the big companies just to travel to the space. So the commercialization of space, that how the companies will organize these tours, is a matter of concern for the legal scholars. And when there will be so many private initiatives to travel to the space, of course, there will be a question related to the space traffic management, that how you are going to manage the traffic inside the space. And then there is a question related to planetary protection, territorial issues in space, and ownership claims. Today, if you go on internet and want to buy a space, want to buy a plot on Moon or Mars, there are people who are willing to sell, you know, who are willing to sell this. Is there any question? Who is this? Tore Khan, please turn off your mic. Okay. So there are so many issues related to the ownership, that who owns the property in space, yes. And finally, the contemporary debate is that we need to review our existing domestic and international laws. The laws need a revival, because in the beginning of the presentation I told you that the laws were developed in the second half of the previous century, and there are so many new things in the context of space law that they need revival. Okay, so there is a need to revise the laws related to space. So some of the laws, for example, they are outdated, and I have quoted them just for a reference, that if someone asks you that what sort of laws required upgradation, so you can give them these you know, specific laws. The space treaty says that the outer space must be explored and used for peaceful purposes, but it does not give the definition of term peaceful. So for Americans, the definition of peaceful might be different from the USSR people. Or for individual country, the peaceful means the protection of their country, and that's why they can get justification of launching a very sophisticated weapon system into the space just to protect their country, and they can claim that their this highly sophisticated weapon system is peaceful, yes. So the space treaty talks about the peaceful use of space, but it doesn't talk about what does it mean by peaceful. So there is a need to give an exclusive definition of peaceful. One could claim that it is spying or espionage. For example, I gave you the example of 5G technology. The 5G technology is being delivered by these spacecrafts. Similarly, the television or satellite TV, or the weather forecast satellites, or the other satellites which are being used for different purposes, one can claim that they are not being used for this specific purpose, but they are being used for spying or some of the other activities which are not you know, helpful for the mankind or dangerous. Okay. And when it comes to the space junk is actually being used as a weapon by many state and non-state actors. So you can destroy a spacecraft inside a space, and now the junk which is released by the spacecraft, it can be used for destroying the other spacecraft, because these small pieces of one spacecraft will just hit to another spacecraft and will cause a damage to it. So there should be a legislation related to the junk which is thrown out by the spacecraft, or the spacecraft itself is, if destroyed inside the space, what one should be doing with the junk of this spacecraft. There is a need to make laws related to this. Okay. And also we need to define space activities, that what kind of activities are justified, what are the peaceful space activities, what are the harmful space activities, space objects, what kind of objects you can send out of the planet, yes, in the outer space, because and everyone is throwing anything outside from the planet into the space. There should be a categorization that what kind of objects should be in the outer space, so that it shouldn't be harmful for the other things which are traveling around the space. And then there is a need to make specific laws related to commercial space activities. Commercialization of space is happening because the big tech giants are spending huge amount of money into the space. Also, there is a need to regulate the space tourism and all other activities for recreational purposes related to the space. We need specific laws. Yes. And if we talk about individual versus state concerns, the Space Liability Convention only dealt with harmful actions related to states. But now we have so many individuals who are doing their own activities. Yes. For example, Elon Musk. Elon Musk is an individual. Now he has a company, for example. But similarly, there are other individual space enthusiasts who are doing so much, related to space. So many things related to space. And the treaties are definitely regulating the relationship between the countries, because treaties are between the states. So what about the individuals who are interacting with the space at different levels? Yes. So this is something which is needed to be regulated by the government or the world community. Yes. Similarly, there is a space damage and aggression. There is just aggression, and then there is act of violence. For example, in South China Sea, every day we listen news that in South China Sea, this country is showing aggression, or this country is showing aggression, or the American spacecrafts are traveling through this, sea passage and causing aggression. Similarly, when it comes to space, there are actual damage and there are aggression. So we should stop these aggressive activities by making new laws. Yes. And then the question related to the liabilities. And then there is a question related to the role of United Nations Office for Outer Space Affairs. There is a specialized body which deals with the space activities. We need to review their mandate so that they can intervene in some of the contemporary issues related to the space. Yes. And from the numerous examples, I have shown that the space law stands at the crossroad of many other laws, for example, administrative law, intellectual property law, arm control law, insurance law, environmental law, criminal law, commercial law. Yes. So there is a transaction, there is an interaction between these different laws. So when a law becomes multidisciplinary, interdisciplinary, or substitutional for one procedural law, or one procedural law become substitutional for the other substantial law, then we need to review them to give a revitalized view for the audience. Okay. So the space law is intersecting with other domains of law, which is actually producing new areas of law, and these new areas of law need further explanation. Okay. So this is just an example to show that so many layers are there, and so many type of substances are there, and all of these substances and all of these interaction, they require explanation from the legal scholars. Yes. And in our conclusion, we can say that at present there is a need to think that how we can use space law to incentivize new technologies, which means that the lawyers are not there to put restrictions. Lawyers are there to facilitate the process of innovation. And then there are so many challenges related to space. So there is a question that how we can regulate the space technologies. Means Many private and state level incentives are being taken. There is a need to regulate them, and for this purpose we need new laws. And finally, how we can use new space technologies to make new law. It is not always lawyers who incentivize the technologies, apply scientists or the people who are working with the space technologies. They can also help the legal scholars to propose new laws. Yes. And the answer to this question, that how it will happen, the answer is that the social and applied scientists, like legal scientists, which are social scientists, and the applied sciences, for example, the people who are working with space and artificial intelligence, they should collaborate, they should sit together, and they should talk about their concerns and come up with their new laws.